Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 13th of February, 2024. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So you guys know how I sometimes go on my bullish rants on the refuel, and you guys seem to enjoy that very much, and I enjoy doing them. Well, on Saturday, when I published the new Daily Gwei drive-thru episode that I did with Eric today, it's basically one of those bullish rants for like a whole hour long. And it's not just me, it's me and Eric doing it. Because as I put out on Farcaster today, I said, just recorded the most bullish ETH podcast in history with Eric. And it was really bullish. Honestly, we spent the whole episode basically just giving the bull case for ETH, why we think ETH is going to like 15k to 20k this cycle, and everything in between basically. And we also spoke about ETH BTC. That was a request from a lot of people about how, you know, what's ETH BTC going to look like going forward. So I'm not going to spoil any of that for you guys. As I said, the episode's going to be out on Saturday. And if I do a rug fill this week, it might be out on that night instead, or that day, I should say, instead, but I don't think I'm going to be doing a rug fill this week. Famous last words, right? But yes, plan is to release this on Saturday, and I know the ETH price has been quite bullish lately. It's kind of funny. What's going to happen is that maybe ETH will be bullish all week, and then I'll release this on Saturday, and it'll be like the local top, and ETH will dump. It always seems to happen, right? But regardless of that, yeah, I just wanted to just let you guys know that just look forward to Saturday. It's just so bullish. Like, honestly, I can't wait to revisit this episode in like a year's time and see how right or wrong, you know, Eric and I were on this, because Eric is really my spirit animal in Ethereum. I mean, we've worked together for so long now, you know, through ETH Hub and into the Ether, and even before that, we became good friends, and he's been in Ethereum longer than I have, since basically day one. But yeah, I've learned a lot from him over the years, and he always just brings such a different and unique perspective to what I bring. So yeah, I'm looking forward to you guys getting to watch and listen to this on Saturday. But anyway, moving on from that onto some news. So James Seifert here, Seifert, someone actually corrected me on pronouncing James's name in the Daily Gwei Discord channel. I'm actually going to go back there quickly and see. So how you pronounce it is Seifert. Yeah, okay, James Seifert. So apologies to James for mispronouncing his surname this entire time, but you guys know that I suck at pronouncing anything. But anyway, James Seifert, Seifert. Yeah, there I go again. Wow, I'm really bad. Anyway, he tweeted today saying Franklin Templeton, which is a really large TradFi institution. I think they manage $1.3 trillion in assets. They have joined the spot ETH ETF race. So they have obviously here filed for their spot ETH ETF. You know, it's kind of funny because at this point, like, this is news, but at the same time, like, for me, I'm pretty much, like, expecting the ETF to be approved by May 23rd. Like, it's not that there's no doubt in my mind that it'll be approved or not, but, like, that's the expectation that I'm running on, essentially. Not just because we have a bunch of these issuers in the running right now, very similar to what we had with Bitcoin. You can actually see the list here on my screen. I'll link it in the YouTube description as well. But just the fact that the BTC ones were approved, and the fact that the ETH one is basically identical to the BTC one, and the fact that it's definitely, in my opinion, going to be a non-staked ETF to begin with, I just don't see a reason why it would be denied here. And I've given my kind of reasons before, so I'm not going to rehash that here. But yeah, just another big financial institution getting involved with kind of a spot ETH ETF. And if these things do get approved by May 23rd, guys, like, that's, you know, if we get like the all-time highs on BTC and ETH in what, like, I don't know, late Q2, sometime in Q3 or something like that, the ETFs are going to be live for that. And we're going to have them live during the kind of like meat of the bull market. So things are going to get pretty crazy. And Eric and I discussed this on our episodes. I'm not going to spoil too much of it there. But yeah, just wanted to put it on your radar that another large TradFi institution has filed for a spot ETH ETF. All right, so I was looking at the Dune Analytics dashboard here put together by Hildobby that tracks basically a bunch of stats around Ethereum staking, and you can go check this dashboard out for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But an interesting little metric that I saw was that EtherFi actually took in more ETH deposits over the last month than Lido, and that's the first time I think that any kind of protocol in a while has overtaken Lido in you know, raw ETH deposits here. Now, of course, EtherFi has been running a pretty massive campaign. They're a liquid restaking protocol, and they've been running this campaign for a little while now. But you can see here that they took in 305,000 ETH over the last month, whereas Lido took in 303,000 ETH. Now, the thing is that it's not just EtherFi, it's everyone else too. Like, look at Mantle here. Mantle took in 245,000 ETH, right? Binance took in a bit, but if we're talking about like I guess like centralized exchange providers here, you've got Swell taking in 100,000. You know, Puffer would be here. I don't know how much ETH exactly Puffer took in, but they took in a lot. Honestly, I think Puffer took in maybe more than EtherFi in the last month, because they took in like $800 million worth of ETH or something like that. All right, so something crazy. But what the point of me kind of talking about this is that the ETH staking landscape is rapidly changing. And it's changing in that there's a lot of ETH now not going into Lido and going elsewhere. And as you guys know, a lot of the ETH going elsewhere is, you know, in the form of ST-ETH, right? But the thing is that ST is going to be kind of vampired out of Lido. So Lido's market share is not only going down because people are using other staking service providers, it is also going to go down from these vampire attacks that are happening. And I remember I talked about like this great reshuffling a while ago now, you know, I guess like staking withdrawals going live. It was this idea that we would see a massive shuffling of stake from, you know, Lido and other providers into newer providers, right? And I did say at the time that would happen over a long period of time. It wasn't going to happen overnight. It's a big ship, you know, to steer this thing. It's like a cruise liner. It takes a while, right? And it's going to happen over years. And I think we're finally seeing that play out, especially over the last few months with the advent of like these liquid restaking tokens and basically all this competition coming online now, liquid restaking tokens or not, you know, all this competition coming online now that competes directly with Lido's market share. And I think Lido's market share is still at what, like 31? I'm gonna look up here, 31.7%, right? Still around that 32% mark that it's been stuck at for ages, but at the same time, as I said, there's still those vampire attacks to come. There's still a lot of ETH that is going to basically reshuffle because of the fact that they want to get access to farming points and farming tokens and restaking and all that sorts of stuff there. So this great reshuffling is actually happening, guys. Like, it really is happening. And at the same time, we've also stopped Lido from growing on a relative basis too. You know, imagine a world where we didn't have all of these protocols. Lido might be at like 40, 50% stake by now. But I remember arguing on the Refuel plenty of times that Lido's market share is everyone else's opportunity. There was just no way that other providers wouldn't come in and say, hey, you know, we can do better than Lido and we can actually grab some of this market share for ourselves, which is exactly what has happened here and has been happening over the last few months in particular. Now, of course, Lido isn't the only provider that is of concern. I think Coinbase isn't that concerning right now. They're like less than 15% of the market share right now in terms of staking market share, but we don't want them growing much more from that, right? We actually don't want them going from that at all, really. I mean, I love Coinbase. They're doing a lot of awesome stuff with Base and bringing people on chain and all that good stuff, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that we should root for them to be like an even larger part of the Beacon chain because of the fact that they are obviously one single centralized entity. But I don't think they're going to be. I think that we're going to have such a vibrant and awesome kind of liquid staking ecosystem, or staking ecosystem generally, and then the kind of, I guess, I don't know if I'd call it centralization concerns, but like those concerns people have with Lido maybe shift to EigenLayer, right? Because EigenLayer right now is really the only restaking protocol benefiting from all of this. There are other restaking protocols that I know of that may be coming online in the future at some point, but they have basically no market share right now. The entire liquid restaking kind of ecosystem is in EigenLayer. So that kind of shifts the conversation to, okay, you know, is EigenLayer now that source of centralization? Is EigenLayer now that big risk that we have to worry about? And I don't have a good answer to that at this point. I've gone through it before on the Refuel. I think we're just going to have to wait and see how it all plays out. I think my good answer and like my best case scenario is that, as I've said, like restaking just gets enshrined into the protocol, and then EigenLayer just exists as a service on top of that taps into restaking, restaked ETH, and allows you to spin up things like AVSs, right? That would be cool because it means that it's tightly coupled with the protocol. It means it basically functions like the ETH staking contract generally, right? Where we basically accept that there's this huge pool of ETH it's staked basically, or that's in the deposit contract, but that's tightly coupled to the protocol. So the same thing would be true for restaking, where we're like, okay, well, restaking is now tightly coupled with the protocol. We accept that. That's all well and good. You know, we've removed a lot of the negative externalities of it just existing extra protocol, and then EigenLayer still exists. It still provides a lot of value. It just doesn't take on the role of that restaking kind of role. It just we just allow people to do that in protocol there. But anyway, going off a little bit of a tangent there, you can go check out the ETH staking dashboard for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, next up here. So I talked about this yesterday at length, and this kind of concept of airdropping tokens to solo stakers, to home stakers. Now, I did a bit more digging and a bit more research on this because I think that, as I said yesterday, the largest blocker to this is finding a good list of addresses that you have high confidence in are solo stakers and are home stakers in order to drop your token to. Because obviously, you don't want to be dropping the token to people that aren't actually solo stakers or home stakers, and there's always going to be people who fall through the cracks. But I did some research and I actually found a really awesome list here on GitHub, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. And this list is actually multiple lists. So it has a list for solo stakers pre-merge, solo stakers pre-Shapala, solo stakers just generally, and so there's 3 lists, and they're split up into A and B. So obviously one of them's too long to put in a document here, so they split it up here. So those are the 3 kind of things here: pre-merge, pre-Shapala, and solo stakers generally. It's interesting that they've got pre-merge and pre-Shapala lists. I wonder if projects are going to be using that for an airdrop at some point. Like if that's their criteria, saying, okay, well, we just want to airdrop to pre-merge stakers, or we just, because those stakers are like the really, I guess, like aligned ones. They're the ones who took all the risk before the merge sort of thing. And I'd wonder if, like, you go back even further and do, like, pre a certain date. Like, imagine just doing all the Genesis stakers, essentially the people who spun up a validator at Genesis of the beacon chain. That would be cool, right? There's no list for that right here, but I think you can kind of extrapolate that list out from the addresses that are here. Now, an interesting thing is I found this list when I was looking at a Starknet governance proposal, I think. So if I don't know if I have it handy here. I came across it somewhere. I think someone linked it to me in DMs actually, because they were DMing me about my tweet the other day. I found that in there, and I don't know who this is. It says GLCNI, which is the account that maintains this list, GLC staked here. I don't know who this is or what project they belong to, because they've been active in a bunch of different repos. They're apparently associated with Dapnode, Nethermind, and Celestia here, or at least that's what they've been involved with. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure who this party is, but these lists are really good. I checked these lists against my own addresses, so against my solo validator addresses and my rocket pool address, which is just sassel.eth, because I spun up my mini pools from there, and all of them are on this list. Now, I checked other lists. I checked Rated.network's list, and my solo validator wasn't on that list. And Rated.network's list only goes up to the first 500,000 validators, but my one of my solo addresses is from Genesis. Like, I literally staked at Genesis. So, and that wasn't on their lists. So obviously I've fallen through the cracks somehow, because that address that I used, I've never used for anything else. That literally was only used to deposit into staking. That might be why it fell through the cracks, because they might have seen that address and they might have said, okay, well, this just looks like an address that was only used once. It means it doesn't belong to a solo staker, but I used it once. I don't know why I used it once at the time, but I used it once, and maybe that's why I fell through the cracks. Whereas this list actually picked up on it. So as far as I'm concerned, this is the golden list right now of solo stakers up to a certain point. I think the last time it was updated was about 4 or 5 months ago. So it's obviously not going to be capturing all of the validators that have entered since then, I believe. Yeah, so it's up to date up to September 2023. But I'm sure you could just kind of update it again. I'm not sure on the criteria that they've used here. I don't know if there's actually if that actually exists in this GitHub repository. Like, if I actually look in here and see, yeah, actually no, there is a bit of criteria here and stuff like that I haven't looked at yet. But you can go check that out for yourself, of course. But yeah, I just came across this today. I wanted to share it with you guys. I'm very curious if projects are going to use this going forward. I think that the pre-merge criteria is very, very interesting, because as I said, you get the most kind of aligned ETH validators in a pre-merge world, in terms of solo stakers, right? Because they're the ones who took a lot of risk, because the merge was a big risk, and then obviously before withdrawals were enabled, your ETH was locked, and your your consensus layer rewards were locked, because this only captures solo stakers. It doesn't capture liquid stakers that went through Lido, just captures solo stakers. So yeah, you can go check out these lists for yourself, see if your address is on there if you are a solo staker. As I said, it does include rocket pool stakers as well from my research on this. So if you are a rocket pool node operator, you should go check this out as well. All right, so speaking of Rocket Pool, actually, perfect segue. So I put out a little Firecast or little cast today on Firecaster where I said Rocket Pool's revenge arc is coming soon, and to study these 3 posts. The first post is Jasper's post about Eigenlayer and Rocket Pool and how they're going to work together. I highlighted this the other day. If you haven't read it yet, go give that a read. The second post is about Rocket Pool's upcoming Houston and Saturn upgrades, which are major upgrades to the protocol. And the third post is all about RPL's tokenomics, really, and how that plays into the wider protocol. Now, I do want to be clear here. When I say Rocket Pool Revenge Arc, I mean the protocol itself. I'm not talking about the token. Like, I try to avoid as much as possible talking about tokens except for ETH, because of the fact that, like, I am invested in RPL. Right, so that's a conflict of interest there. Obviously, I'm invested in ETH as well, but ETH is a different thing. You guys know that I don't plan to sell my ETH or anything like that. I mean, I don't really plan to sell my RPL either, but I think that for me, I just like to stick to talking about ETH when I'm talking about kind of giving like a bull case for it. So when I talk about projects, I'm not talking about their tokens. I'm talking about the project themselves. But logically, at least in a smart market, which I don't think crypto is, but in a smart market over the long term, if Rocket Pool succeeds, if Rocket Pool keeps growing, if it drives value to the token, then you would expect the RPL would perform well as well. But I make no comment on what it's going to do. I hold RPL. I mean, it's all public how much I hold. It's on Sassel.eth. It's all staked with my mini pools, right? I'm part of the ODAO as well, so it's staked there too. But the point of this post was just to show you guys that Rocket Pool is not kind of dying or anything like that. I don't think anyone said it's dying, but they got a lot of stuff planned, a lot of exciting stuff. So you definitely go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, Josh Rudolph has a fresh update for us today from the latest Verkle implementers call, number 12 here. So this week's agenda covered updates from client teams, testnets, a few EIPs, testing team updates, and deprecating serialized commitments. So as usual, this update I'll link in the YouTube description for you to give a read to. But this works as a nice little springboard for me because I actually DM'd Josh a few days ago, and I said to him, I'm like, look, I'm really excited about the Verge. I'm really excited about Verkle trees and statelessness and state expiry and all that. But I think that generally people don't know much about it from like a explain like I'm 5 or a plain English kind of a plain English explanation. So I said to him, like, I think it would be a really good idea if you put together a nice blog post explaining what Verkle trees are, why they're important for Ethereum, why statelessness is important for Ethereum, and then what the actual flow-on effects are of the Verge. What does the Verge enable for the end user? Because I've spoken before in the past about how the Verge lays a lot of groundwork for a lot of really cool upgrades. It potentially allows us to raise the gas limit on L1 to, 10 to 100x, it depending on kind of when we implement these things, along with a lot of other things that touches this kind of part of the roadmap here. But you wouldn't know about that because a lot of it is buried in ETH research posts. A lot of it is me just giving you a high-level overview of things. Like, I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm just giving you the view from where I understand. And yes, you could go research it yourself. Obviously, there's that website that I've shouted out before, Verkle.info, but most people are not going to do this. So I said to Josh, I'm like, hey, put a blog post together, put a tweet thread together. We'll push it out. Like, I'll help push it out, help get eyeballs on it, and we'll educate people about the fact that Ethereum L1 is still scaling for L1. Ethereum L1 is not ossifying anytime soon, and there is a lot of exciting stuff happening. It's just that it happens over longer time periods, and it's just that we're not taking shortcuts to get there. So look forward to that. I'm definitely looking forward to that. I mean, Josh messaged me today, and he kind of came up with like a big bit of feedback for me, and I was just like, wow, okay, this is awesome. Like, I was reading through it and I was getting really excited, but I'm not gonna show you his DM or anything like that to me because I don't want to kind of like invade his privacy or kind of like show you DMs or anything like that. But that will translate into the blog post that I think he's going to be putting out at some point. I don't know when. I just gave it as a suggestion to him, but he agreed with me that it was something that should be out there in order to educate people further on this. But I mean, you don't have to wait for that. As I said, you can go to Verkle.info if you want to learn more about this. But yeah, the Verge is definitely a very exciting and under-discussed part of the roadmap, which is going to be the main roadmap item next year. As I've said, 2025 belongs to the Verge. 2024 obviously belongs to blobs with EIP 4844 and Denkun, and then Petra towards the end of the year with inclusion lists and a few other kind of EIPs going into that. Don't know about max effective balance yet. Maybe it's in there, maybe it's not. But yeah, 2025 definitely belongs to the Verge. That seems to be the year where things are going to start kicking into high gear for the Verge there. All right, so Terence has a fresh new ETH research post today all about ePBS or minimal ePBS and some of the changes that would need to be made to the beacon chain to enable this. Now, you guys know that ePBS or Ethereum Proposer Builder Separation is a large roadmap item. It has been on the roadmap for quite a while now. It's basically putting the MEV boost relays into the protocol, so enshrining them in the protocol so that we don't have to deal with these relays and basically taking a lot of power away from that kind of extra protocol stuff there. Now, you may think this is simple, but it is anything but. It is a complicated process. It requires changes to the beacon chain, which are always things that need to be thoroughly researched before we can make changes here. But definitely, it has a lot of benefits. The main benefit is the fact that we get rid of these relays who really are altruists. They're kind of like operating out of altruism right now. It gets rid of the censorship concerns with relays, and it basically allows us to enshrine another thing in the protocol, which makes it easier for core devs to reason about without having to worry about kind of like MEV boost relays existing extra protocol and then having to add that extra overhead for them. This kind of allows you to kind of put that to rest there. But yeah, you can go read this ETH research post from Terence. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, speaking of PBS and ePBS and builders and relays and proposers and things like that, SoySpoke here has a new ETH research post today all about realigning proposer builder incentives with predictive MEV-burn. Now, this will, of course, not be a kind of like an ePBS thing because ePBS really targets the relays. This is outside of that, where essentially you want to make sure that the proposers and builders have the same incentives on the network and that we integrate MEV-burn into that in order to kind of align those incentives there. Now, you guys know that MEV-burn has been an active research topic for quite a while now, headed up by Domothy and Justin Drake as the ones that have been most loud about it, and they've been on the Bankless podcast talking about this, but there are a lot of other people working on this stuff now, including SoySpoke. I think they've taken like a lot of the reins on the research side of things. I'm not sure how involved Domothy and Justin are with it right now, but there's a lot of work going on here into MEV-burn in the context of essentially aligning proposer builder incentives, because that is really what we want to do. We want to align incentives in order to get rid of the negative externalities like censorship. Because as I mentioned yesterday, we have basically accepted that builders are always going to be, centralized just by design, and that is the economic incentive. So there's no point fighting that. There's no point trying to work around that, because by doing so, it can end up just being futile, and there's a lot of wasted research and development that goes into that for us just to end up back at square one, or basically, end up back at the start. So essentially, what can we do to basically realign or align incentives? Because that is really the goal of mechanism design, is aligning incentives with crypto economics, with cryptography, and making sure that all of the parties are doing things that, yes, are in their best interest, but also in the best interest of the network. So that's essentially what this post is speaking to, but you can go give this post a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so you guys know that there's currently a 1-minute short animation being developed for EIP 4844. Trent Van Epps tweets about this or casts about this a lot, and I've talked about it a lot on the Refuel. If you want to know when this is going to go live, you can go to 4844animation.com and put in your email address here to get notified when this is live. So I've said to you guys there's going to be an NFT drop that's part of this as well. So this will notify you of the NFT drop too, so that you don't miss that NFT. This is another thing that I think that can become part of airdrop criteria. I know I've said before that being part of the KZG ceremony, having a 4844 short film NFT, having an EIP 1559 NFT, these are things that I think should be included in airdrop criterias if you're going to airdrop to, the most loyal Ethereum community members and things like that. I hope that they are, but just generally, I think owning a piece of Ethereum history is always a good thing. Like, I own the #1 EIP 1559 NFT. I'm very proud of that. Honestly, like, I love it. I mean, I used to display it behind me in my videos when I had the digital display up, but I don't have anywhere to put it behind me, so it's not there. But I used to display that then. I'm just so proud of that NFT. So maybe I can get the #1 NFT of EIP 4844 here. But regardless of that, yeah, you can just sign up here. I just wanted to put it on your radar. I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to put your email in, and you'll get it updated as soon as the NFT mint and film are live. All right, last up here, just wanted to give a shout out to Justin Drake. He has shared basically a video and notes from the first Ethereum sequencing and pre-confirmation call. Now, this is a new call that Justin Drake has put together with everyone working on anything got to do with layer 2s and sequencing and pre-confirmations and shared sequencing and boosted rollups and all that stuff there to basically land on a standard way of doing these things over the coming, months and years here. This is very, very important for the future of Ethereum. This is very important for a lot of the stuff that we've talked about recently on the Refuel with regards to fragmentation of liquidity and kind of like defragging that and kind of realigning the liquidity again. So this is very important. So there are two kind of notes that you can check out, which I'll link in the YouTube description below, as well as the call itself. The notes pretty much give you the gist of the call. So you can just read the notes. I did, and it was, just a really quick read to get through and get the TLDR of the call. But of course, you can listen to the call yourself if you'd like as well there. And also, Justin shouted out that Flashbots, Tycho, and the Ethereum Foundation are open to grant applications with most teams hiring as well. So yeah, if you are looking for a job in crypto, guys, if you're looking for a career change, maybe you follow crypto, but you don't work within it, there are so many teams hiring right now. And obviously, we're going into another bull market. So there's going to be plenty of money around, plenty of people raising money in order to kind of like keep their burn, keep their runway to a really long length as a project, even if you're a startup. And there's just so many exciting opportunities happening right now to work within the Ethereum ecosystem. So if you are interested in doing that, you can go check out a lot of these teams. But at the same time, I wanted to give another quick shout out here to cryptocurrency jobs. I'm going to bring this website up and I'm going to link it in the YouTube description below. But you can go to cryptocurrencyjobs.co. They have so many jobs listed on here. So if you are looking for a job within crypto, not just within the Ethereum ecosystem, but within crypto generally, you can go check out this website for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, and there's just so many jobs here, but across like everything you can think of, whether that be development, marketing, design, operations, anything you can think of, it's here. So yeah, definitely go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, and I do have a couple of minutes left here, and I'm glad that I do because there's something that I wanted to talk about. Maybe it might be a little bit redundant for me to talk about this because you're going to hear a lot about it on the episode I did with Eric on Saturday, but I did want to just spend a couple of minutes here talking about the fact that, as I've said before, we have entered the early bull market. I said that like a few weeks ago. We entered the early stage of the bull market, and things are going faster than I anticipated, to be honest. I think that the ETFs have really changed the calculus of things. BTC going to 50K, I didn't expect that to happen as soon as it did. As bullish as I am, I figured that we'd range for a bit and then, and then go to there. But I think that the ETFs really have changed the calculus here. Now, of course, the ETF doesn't just apply to BTC, it applies to ETH, because as I believe, the ETH ETF is going to get approved in May, then you're going to see similar price action on ETH that we saw to BTC. At least that's my belief. There's no guarantee. It's just my belief here. Now, because of that, it begs the question, like, are we going to have like a shorter cycle? Because if you actually look at the previous cycles, the 4-year cycles to today, BTC is already way ahead of its previous cycles. It is like at least 3 to 6 months ahead of its previous cycles. So does that mean that we're going to have a shorter cycle? Or does that mean we've finally broken out of the 4-year cycle? Does that mean we can no longer rely on the 4-year cycle, at least for BTC and ETH? Maybe the other assets out there just kind of left in the dust sort of thing, and maybe BTC and ETH trade on their own for a while. Those assets will still probably go up, but maybe those assets kind of do their own thing and they're just like, I don't know, trade differently to BTC and ETH. So it's just an open question that I have right now, and I don't think we're going to have an answer to this until this entire cycle plays out. But yeah, it's looking very different right now, guys. Like, I mean, just the sheer time difference between the last cycle to this cycle is staggering. Like right now in 2024, this is 2020 if you look at the 4-year cycle, and we're in February of 2020. Like, and I'm not talking about the COVID dump that came after, right? Because I don't expect that to happen again because that was a black swan. But if you just erase the COVID dump and look at the price action back then to today, it's very, very different. Like BTC is at least 3 to 6 months ahead of back then, even though we're at the we're at that kind of like period. You would have expected BTC to go to 50K based on the 4-year cycle towards the end of Q3 into Q4, and then hitting all-time highs in maybe, Q1 2025. But we've vastly accelerated that. So unless we have another market-wide sell-off, unless we go into like a long sideways towards maybe Q3, Q4, then it's safe to say that the 4-year cycle has been broken at this point. I think we have enough evidence of that. I'm not going to say it's for sure been broken yet, but we have enough evidence, I think, at this point to say that it probably is. And that's crazy, guys, like, because that cycle has been going on for a very long time now. But we'll have to see how the rest of this cycle plays out. We'll have to see how the bear market plays out. Like, does BTC not go down and ETH not go down 80% again because of the fact that they now have these ETFs and they have the ETF bid? I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm not going to tell you things aren't going to go down. Of course they are. But I'm going to be very, very curious to see how BTC and ETH perform from now on from a price perspective, and also how the rest of the market performs too, because obviously BTC and ETH influences the rest of the market as well. So it's going to be a very interesting thing to see over the next year or so. But anyway, on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.